Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 14th of January 2014. So in today's news we have some stuff about Ghostcrawler and his job move, then a whole bunch of PvP talk in Warlords of Draenor, and then finally we're going to round it up with some Siege of Orgrimmar stats that are really in-depth and we can actually take a lot of interesting stuff out of it. So, Ghostcrawler has moved to Riot, interestingly enough, and he's the lead game designer over there. The question is he the lead game designer for LoL because they already kinda have that, or is he going to be heading up a new project? Riot do easily have the funds to make 10 different projects and hire 10 new teams or something ridiculous like that. So I'd say, yeah, there's a solid chance he could be, like, kind of related with a new project at Riot. He did say that the move that he's making was kind of impossible to pass up. So essentially it just means he has his own game, maybe. So yeah, maybe he has his own game, something like that, or perhaps he's moving on to LoL. Interestingly enough though, when I saw the Reddit thread on the LoL Reddit, holy shit, the community were tearing him to pieces. It was ridiculous. And honestly, this guy, like, he was used to dealing with the World of Warcraft community, and in comparison to the LoL community, the WoW idiots are tame. The LoL community is the most fucking depraved shithole on the internet that I've ever seen. It's like a 4chan or something. It's terrible. Yeah, I used to play LoL for a while. Only like a month or two, then I got bored. But basically, yeah, this guy doesn't know what kind of abuse he's gonna get. I would hate to wake up to see what sort of Twitter feed he's going to have this morning. But anyway, let's just look at this objectively. The guy's pretty good at designing games. A lot of the changes that he made to the game, or to World of Warcraft, were kind of the best thing at the time. And it's just the sort of thing where a lot of people, I think, like I even seen the comments of this video, they just stick out these really just fucking idiotic comments about, oh, blah blah blah, Ghostcrawler ruined the game. No, he didn't. You don't understand anything about how a game is designed. And the fact that it's not just one guy. Okay, the lead, like, designer has a massive role, but in WoW, he was the lead systems designer. He was a part of a team, and it was all a collaborative effort. So any changes that were made were a part of a team consensus. So it's not like he just single-handedly went in and tried to unbalance everything. It's also worth noting that balance in World of Warcraft was absolutely shocking before his era of Blizzard. I'm not saying it was him that did it, but that sort of post-Wrath era. Okay, in Wrath, quite a lot of classes were still unbalanced, yeah. But if you go back into Burning Crusade, if you were just this whole slew of classes that were hybrids, all they could do is heal because their other specs were worthless. The class balance in Burning Crusade was shockingly bad in comparison to what we have now, and people still just like to rail on the guy and give him personal blame for that, which is frankly just false and not the case. So you know what? He's probably going to do a fine job over at Riot, and yeah, total traitor. And finally, Morello still has his job. Morello is the lead content designer over at Riot. So since Morello still has his job, that definitely does lend a little bit more credence to Ghostcrawler being on another game or something like that. So yeah, overall, interesting stuff, and yeah, that's about that. Oh, by the way, the finally, just the like proof we have is his LinkedIn profile, which is now saying that he works at Riot, so that's pretty much a reliable source. Also, on the Reddit thread, a Riot employee was just talking to some people, which basically is confirming, yeah, Ghostcrawler's at Riot. Anyway, so next we have some PvP stuff. And this is good information from both Helinka and Bashiok. Helinka tweeted saying that they don't really know how large base resilience and battle fatigue, they don't like how large base resilience and battle fatigue numbers have gotten to, and they want to reduce or eliminate both of them in Warlords. Of course, this will come with a whole bunch of other PvP number changes, so before you jump in and rage in the comments, know, like, they are going to do this as a part of a wider balancing initiative, and it's going to be very heavily tested in the beta. Anyway, moving on, Bashiok gave us a few examples. He said that they're planning on changing PvP power so that instead of a flat percentage increase to damage or healing, it will give you a bonus to your primary specification stat. So if a piece of gear has, say, 80 strength and 30 PvP power, then in a PvP environment it would have an effect of 110 strength. They said that this change allows them to basically keep PvP and PvE item levels just way more closer together than they are now, while still ensuring that PvP gear is the best in PvP. It also kind of makes things a little bit easier to understand in terms of a raw percentage-based thing, because sometimes percentage damage got a little bit confusing with how it maybe played in with some abilities, but now that it's just a part of your stats, that's a little bit mathematically easier, because just the way something's kind of played out with numbers and weirdness. So, yeah, overall, I'm thinking that's actually quite a good change. Anyway, so basically their overall goal is that PvE is stronger than PvP. PvE gear is stronger in PvE environments. PvP is stronger in PvP environments. Then PvE gear is slightly stronger versus creatures in the open world, and PvP is slightly stronger versus players in the open world. This is essentially exactly what you would expect, and basically it seems like everyone is going to be similar enough in open world, with people having a bit of a slight edge in PvP or PvE based in their gear, but then when you move into the specialized things like raids or battlegrounds, then the differences are really going to show. Now, since item levels are going to be closer together, there should be less of a problem with PvE people destroying PvP in open world, and a few different things like that. Though my only concern is that a few seasons later, new PvP players are not going to have the good gear, so their gear will be much worse, and without base resilience to be there as a protector, they're still going to be taking very high damage. So I guess this is something that Blizzard will be compensating with this whole kind of big, wide range of changes. But yeah, it's certainly a bit of a thing they need to watch out for. Then also, while talking about PvP dummies, Bashiok said that there should actually be less of a need for a PvP dummy, because PvP and PvE damage will be a lot more similar than how they are now. Also, things like battle fatigue and battle resistance, or base resilience even, will be significantly reduced or removed altogether when we move into Warlords. So yeah, what does this mean overall? Well, things should be simplified a little bit, just so they make more sense. They're going to actually be making sort of large expansion-sized changes to how all these different stats play together, which should basically mean that things are a little bit more balanced between PvE and PvP. It has been kind of unfortunate the way the two of them often feel like they're at odds in terms of balance. So yeah, hopefully this is the sort of thing that's going to be fixed. Finally, they did say that one of the situations they wanted to avoid was, say, a Chaos Bolt doing 1.5 million damage in normal, just like in PvE, and then in PvP only doing 180k. They want those numbers to be a bit more similar, so with whatever way they're going to be balancing all the different numbers for the expansion, hopefully that should be the case. Before we get bogged down in Siege of Orgrimmar numbers, let's just take two tweets from the Blues. The first one is from Celestian, and he says that there is no plans to bring back two-handed enhancement shamans. That's probably a bit of a pity, because I guess that was a playstyle that some people enjoyed, so it's a little bit sad they're not bringing it back. Though maybe there was some sort of issue with two-handed enhancement that I'm not aware of, so whatever. And then next we have a tweet from Watcher, who said 14 bosses is a lot, especially for a lot of groups, and the non-linearity will help a lot. Now, okay, non-linearity will help a lot, and I don't know why for some reason I keep on failing at saying that word, but basically, yeah, if the raids aren't linear, then people have got more of a choice in how they go through them. Personally, though, I think that, yeah, it's an issue with linearity, but it's also an issue with scenery. I would like it if we just had maybe a Sartharian or a Gruul or an Onyxia, just one of those 1 or 2 boss raids stuck off at the side, an Alakir even. I think that would be really cool. Even if Siege of Orgrimmar was essentially split into 3 wings or something that were non-linear, I still think you'd kind of get tired of the place. That said, though, you wouldn't get as tired of it as we have now. I remember this one stage in the Siege of Orgrimmar progression rating, and it was when we had just we were in around Dark Shaman and Nazgrim, and I don't know what it was about those 2 bosses, but it just felt like such a slog getting through the 2 of them. Just that, and going through the same trash every week. That damn Iron Juggernaut trash, or the stuff after Iron Juggernaut. But essentially, yeah, I think it really does lead to burnout, so non-linearity is extremely important, and I really hope they implement it in Warlords, because I think Siege of Orgrimmar was just too much. If the place was maybe 10 bosses or 8 bosses, it would have been acceptable to have it being not linear. But even still, like, there should be more non-linearity. Anyway, game design talk over, and let's move on to some Siege of Orgrimmar stats. These are from MMO Champion. First of all, let's tackle the participation rates for Siege of Orgrimmar. So for Mercius, 63.5% have killed him on LFR, 33% on Flex, 19 on Normal, and 6.38 on Heroic. Now this ratio pretty much does continue the entire way through, with the Flex, Normal, and Heroic percentages decreasing just a little bit, like their ratios. Mainly though, we do see that each wing seems to lose 8 to 10% of the previous wing's players on LFR, 2 to 4% in Flex, and then 2 to 4% on Normal. So LFR definitely is something that people are taking less seriously, and perhaps they just burn out on it a bit faster than other modes. One thing I should probably mention is I'm really just going to go through some of the relevant data here, because going through every single number and saying it would just take 5 minutes, and there'd be no fun in that. Anyway, so we also see that Flex is roughly 50% as popular as LFR, and then Normal is about 60% as popular as Flex. However, this number does increase with the later bosses, and then finally Heroic is about 25 to 33% as popular as Normal. The thing to take away from this is that Flex is very, very popular, especially when you take into consideration the way that there's so much more work to get a Flex group going than there is for an LFR one, so I think it really is quite cool that Flex has turned out to be so successful. Then of course we see that as time goes on, the amount of Flex to Normal players, it starts to increase in the favour of Normal, just because there's less hardcore Flex raiders that really stay there for the long haul. I guess. Anyway, so next let's move on to the percentage of participating players who have killed bosses. So the percentage drop from boss to boss basically drops in a linear fashion of about 3.8%, bar some spikes on harder bosses. This is on Normal, and what this means is that Blizzard have successfully made a rather linear difficulty curve throughout the instance, with the difficulty from wing to wing increasing just a little bit. Well, kind of like spiking from wing to wing, and then being a little bit more flat during the wings. So I think that's overall quite good, and I just think this is the best way to do it, and honestly, the balance is pretty decent. Then Flex sees similar numbers, however there are larger drops from boss to boss, and this is probably just because a lot of Flex groups are pogs or casuals, like just casual groups, so they don't really care about progressing on to Garrosh or that kind of thing. And then also LFR is actually rather funny, because you see about a 10 to 13% drop in participation from wing to wing, which honestly is what you would expect. So overall, what can we take from these numbers? Well, first of all, the overall participation rates are probably somewhere above 60%, which is quite good for a final raid. So yeah, that's one good thing. Then also the difficulty curve for Siege of Orgrimmar is very balanced on most levels, which leads to a smooth difficulty curve on the most part. And then finally, LFR is the most popular, but Flex and Normal are doing very well, and Heroic is just kind of trucking on as Heroic always tends to do. Still though, this is interesting data, and honestly it's kind of heartening. It means Siege of Orgrimmar was at least relatively successful in quite a few regards. I'd imagine if you saw those numbers for Throne of Thunder on 10 player, you would have seen quite a lot of spikes in and around the first few bosses, because like just some of them were disproportionately harder than others, and then when you moved on, things like Quan and Consorts were just dead easy. It didn't have that good a difficulty curve, whereas I think Siege of Orgrimmar really does, which is just kind of means it's well designed and quite well executed. So well done, Blizzard. I still have reservations though about it being a single, basically linear 14 bosses, bar the one time where you get to choose between Siege Master and Spoils, which honestly, that's not enough. Anyway though, today's a pretty fun show actually. I'll be interested to see what people make of Ghostcrawler leaving, and then what people think of these PvP changes though. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please drop a like, and I will see you next time.